How to increase your income. How do you think about employee income? Employee income can be an emotional subject, especially if you're the employee. It is often daintily tiptoed around in interviews and loudly complained about in bars. In fact, income is a reflection of an employee's value to a company. As value goes up, so does pay. Even if every company in the world were as ruthless and cold-blooded as some believe, value and compensation would still be inextricably connected. Let's take a look at why this is the case and how you can increase your value as an employee to get paid what you deserve. Imagine that you're CEO of company and you must give a difficult decision: sack off. Option 1, Bill, is an old and true company standby. He's worked at the company for 20 years and has been completely faithful to his job expectations. He clocks in and out on time and delivers his customer support perfectly on script. As a result, he's accumulated a number of raises over the years and now makes $20 an hour. Option 2, Shelley, has only worked in customer support for 5 years but has obtained advanced technical certifications, has an excellent interpersonal manner and routinely turns upset customers into loyal patrons. Clients who get support from her are 30% more likely to purchase additional services and to refer friends. She talks off script a fair amount, but keeps track of what she says and how customers react. As a result, she has submitted many helpful modifications to the basic IT script, resulting in a 10% increase in customer satisfaction for the whole floor. Due to her high performance, Shelley also makes $20 per hour. Which one gets the boot? It's Bill without question. The company is actually losing money on Bill. If they fired him, a new employee would work for only $12 per hour and could read the script just as skillfully as him within 2 weeks. If Shelley were fired, however, the company would lose out on a major source of sales, referrals, customer satisfaction and an internal system for improving the whole department. They can't afford to lose her. Value is not the same thing as years on the job. Bill's problem is that he hasn't really done anything to justify his increased wages. Small raises have accumulated on his paycheck like moss on an old river rock, but his real value is still around $12 an hour. However, since Bill has been working at the company for so many years, he probably feels like he's worth $20 an hour. Never mind the fact that he couldn't get paid $20 an hour at a different company. He's put in his time, so he's worth $20 an hour, right? The problem is, those raises are often based off of meeting minimum standards for specified periods of time, not the value an employee brings to the table. As a result, when push comes to shove and a company needs to actually evaluate the worth of an employee, years on the job mean far less to the business than added value. Businesses pay for value. To be honest, many employees are confused about what their salaries pay for. When people first enter the workforce as teenagers, they usually start with an hourly wage. The equation is simple: the more you work, the more money you get. Unfortunately, after a couple of years, many people begin to translate time into money and begin to think, I've put in a lot of time at this job, so it stands to reason that I should be making a lot of money. I need a raise. Value isn't a function of time. There are 24 hours in a day whether a company pays for them or not. It's what you do with those hours that counts. Employees are business assets. Even for hourly employees, businesses aren't paying for time, they're paying for value. To put it simply, an employee is a company asset and compensation is an investment in that asset. If the asset started producing 4 or 5 times more money than we put into it, then it would really be profitable. In fact, we would be willing to invest more if we knew payoff would be that good. The same goes for employees. An employee who produces less value, however, loses money and, unless they can become more productive, we can't afford to keep them in the long run. How to increase your value? Now, Think we've looked at things like a ruthless businessman for long enough to show why companies care about the value their employees bring to the table. In most real businesses with real, warm-hearted people, the same principles are still at play, but the focus is more on encouraging employees to become more valuable than on eliminating dead weight. In general, this encouragement comes in the form of salary. The more value an employee brings to the table, the more they deserve to be paid. The question then becomes, how do employees increase their value? There are 3 basic steps. 1. Ensure that you're meeting the basic expectations of your job. 2. You identify areas where you can add more value and 3. Create and execute a plan to exceed expectations. Step 1. Meeting expectations. Before you start trying to expand your horizons, it's a good idea to make sure that you're at least fulfilling the minimum requirements of your role. Of course, it can sometimes be hard to figure out what those requirements are. In fact, half of employees don't really understand what is expected of them at work. Many companies have very little in the way of formal job descriptions. Others have long lists of tasks and expectations around hiring time, but when you start the job you find that half the stuff on the list you never do and half the stuff you do isn't on the list. So, if you're not what your job expectations really are, the easiest way to get that question answered is to talk to your manager. Have a discussion about what workplace success looks like. You might even ask how your position adds value to the company. This gives you a target for increasing your value later on. If, in this discussion, you discover work expectations that you weren't aware of or that you haven't been meeting, your first priority should be to start meeting those expectations. You may also find that some managers are just as confused about your role as you are. If this describes your supervisors, then a sit-down conversation is especially important. Defining together what your core responsibilities are will help them to know when you are exceeding expectations. Step 2. Find areas to excel. As part of your conversation, you should also determine a list of projects which could add extra value to the company that fall within the scope of your job. It's important to choose these projects in conjunction with your manager because you need to be sure that when you go above and beyond, it's in areas that your company finds important. What's more, you want your extra efforts to be recognized for what they are. It's helpful at this stage to come up with a way to document your performance. Documentation is still important in these cases, but it may look a little different. Step 3. Make a plan and execute it. Finally, you need to put everything you've learned into action. If your goal is to increase your compensation at work, you can start by deciding how much more you would like to be making. Take your current job expectations and salary as the baseline for what you're worth to the company. Then realize that for every $1 that you hope to get in increased pay, you need to bring in $3 to $5 to the business for your raise to make sense. Pick from your above and beyond list some projects that would add this kind of value to the company. Make a plan to complete these goals in addition to your regular tasks and present the plan to your manager. This will go over a lot better than the old, "I'm getting married so I need a raise" conversation. Your manager may not agree with every detail of your plan, but you will definitely come off as a motivated employee who really gets it. And, even if your managers don't buy in right away, it will be a great opportunity to discuss their priorities again and work together to come up with a plan that accomplishes things that really matter. Don't skip this important conversation. If you haven't figured out by now, communication with your superiors is going to be a critical part of this whole process. Unfortunately, business plans are rarely static and you may have to chase a moving target, but if you're willing to be flexible, you should be able to keep moving forward towards your goals. Conclusion. The moral of the story: if you feel that you deserve a raise, don't get drunk and holler about it every Friday night. Take inventory of your worth, talk with your managers and start working to become a more valuable asset. Well, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed today's video, Please give it a thumbs up and subscribe our channel for more content like this.